Kering Group, a multinational company that has been taking the world by storm since the mid-1990s. Prada, Burberry, Tiffany, Cartier, Hermes, and Gucci are brands that we know and may own. There's been a rapid rise in global expenditure on luxury goods. In 2014 alone, $288 billion was spent worldwide on personal luxury items such as perfumes, clothes, and handbags. Currently, Kering is in the midst of a lawsuit with another retail giant, Alibaba. Alibaba is a Chinese-owned company that is comparable to a Chinese version of Amazon. Goods are sold and purchased with the company acting as a marketplace for goods and consumers. This litigation is due to knockoffs of Kering Group's products being sold on Alibaba's website at a ridiculously low price. For instance, knockoff Gucci handbags were being sold for between $2 to $5 a piece, when the original price of a real Gucci handbag is around $795. This spells bad news for Kering Group as they try to maintain their reputation for high-quality goods when these knockoffs are being mistaken for the real thing. Counterfeit products are nothing new in China, though. Approximately 20% of all consumer products are counterfeit, and the World Customs Organization has calculated that 65% of all counterfeit shipments globally originate in mainland China. Because of their institutional weakness, China is well aware of its thriving informal economy, and the Chinese people often joke that they can copy everything except your mother. This institutional weakness stems from many things, such as the political corruption, arbitrary laws, and poor law enforcement. The biggest question we're facing is whether or not the US court can even impose sanctions on Alibaba. And if they do, will there be enforcement? The notion of this cognitive pillar can be traced back to China's dynasty rulings, where Confucian idealism was strongly emphasized. Confucianism viewed human beings as interconnected and emphasized learning through the copying of others, while Western tradition sees copying as something inferior and equivalent of stealing. In many Asian nations, the highest compliment one can be paid is to be copied. During the emergence of Marxism in the West, Maoists outlawed privatization and the intellectual property protection concept that stemmed along with Marxism. IP protection was frowned upon and considered detrimental to the traditional collectivist Chinese culture. Imperial China was not concerned with the idea of IP protection until the late 1990s, when the government realized that in order to attract foreign investment, they had to rework their legal system. However, the laws are far from the Western standard for IP protection. In China, the first person to file for IP gets claim to the property without having to prove that they are the original creator. In fact, many government officials directly profit from piracy and counterfeit products, often employing pirated software throughout the government systems and accepting briberies to let pirated companies operate. We speculate that there are several factors that come into play between Alibaba and Kering, all of which potentially affect Kering's decision-making, whether or not they should even go forth with the litigation, and if it's worth their time. 1. China operates on a more relationship-based economy, which isn't a good thing for Kering. Their four pillars aren't supporting one another, especially normative and cognitive, which makes for the actual regulations of policies difficult. That is, if Kering wins the litigation, the actual enforcement of the laws might be hard. The US and China have had litigation wars over IP and counterfeit goods before, and they've not ended well. It's set precedent that the Chinese are willing to reform their policy, but that once again, the implementation isn't done. What this means for Kering is that they should question even pursuing the case. The last reason Kering could have trouble lies in China's consumer attitude towards counterfeit goods. Relative to US standards, fake goods are way more accepted in China, which once again could mean no enforcement if Kering wins the case. The bottom line is that Kering has all odds against it. In an international world in which counterfeit products make up a solid $100 billion a year, or in other words 6% of all world merchandise trade, international counterfeiting can be lucrative with very little risk. Countries like China and Taiwan have very little say in counterfeiting, because oftentimes, counterfeit trade occurs outside a country's jurisdiction, so enforcement is hard and lawsuits are even more difficult to process.